Morning children. Now today in biology I'm going to start with the new chapter, and the chapter is the flower. Okay, so the flower, which is not unknown to anyone. The flower, it is the most beautiful part of a plant, which is the most attractive part of a plant. That's why everyone will get attracted towards the flower. They are brightly colored. Some of the flowers are large, some are small, but all the flowers are beautiful. Okay, so if you look around, what can you see around you? You can see many objects. You can see many things like plants, animals, human beings, and birds, then insects, butterflies, and together with them you can see the other things also, like the mountain, river, the sun, stars, buildings, vehicles, and the smallest things like pencil, book, bag, table, chair, etc. Right? So among these objects which you can see around you, some of them are living things and some of them are non-living things. So how can you differentiate? How can you make out that some of the things are living things and some of the things are non-living things? So you can make out the difference between living things and non-living things by the characteristics. So if you see the characteristics of living things, then there are about 5 characteristics of living things. So by observing these characters, we can easily make out the differences between living things and non-living things. So these characteristics of living organisms are: number 1, living things, they need food. They eat food. Without food they cannot survive. Then number 2, living things, they grow. Then number 3, living things, they can feel. They can feel the sadness or the happiness. They have the feelings. Then the next one is living things, they move. They move from one place to another place. And the last one is the living things, they reproduce. Okay, but you don't find all these characters in non-living things. Okay, so that's why there are 2 types of things. One is living thing and the other one is non-living thing. Now, about the living organisms, if you see the characteristics of the living organisms, then one of the main characteristics of a living organism is they reproduce. Now, what do you mean by the term reproduction? Reproduction, it is the process by which the living organisms, they reproduce or they produce the young ones. So reproduction is the process of producing a young baby. Okay, so, and you all know that the animals, or including the human beings, they reproduce either by giving birth or by laying eggs. Okay, then since plants are also living organisms, and one of the characteristics of a living organism is they reproduce, means plants also, they do reproduce. But how do they reproduce? We have never seen a plant giving birth to a small plant, baby plant, or we have never seen a plant laying eggs. But since they are living organisms, they do reproduce. But how? Now, to know this, let's go to the different parts. Let's go back to the parts of a plant. So if you see the different parts of a plant, then they are root, stem, leaf, flower, bud, fruits, isn't it? And each parts of a plant, they have their own functions. They perform their own functions. So what is the function of a root? The root, they absorb water and minerals. Then those water and minerals, they will absorb and they will send it through the stem to the leaf, which means the function of the leaf is to prepare food for the whole plant, and the process is called photosynthesis. Then the function of the stem, they will give support to the plant. They will keep the plant straight, upright. Okay? So the next one is the fruit. Now, fruit. Inside the fruit, seeds will develop. And from the seed, the new plant will grow. But where do you think the seeds will come from? Where do you think the fruits will come from? It comes from the flower, which means flower, it is the reproductive part of a plant. Flower plays an important role in reproduction. Because if you see some of the fruit trees, first the flower will bloom, and that flower after few days will get converted into a fruit, and slowly the seeds will also develop inside the fruit, and from the seed the new plant will grow. So which means, what is flower then? Flower, it is the reproductive part of a plant. The most beautiful part of a plant, which plays an important role in the process of reproduction, which means flower reproduce new plant. Okay, so if you see the types of the flower, then flower are all of different shapes and sizes. They have different colors, but the function is to reproduce. So, if you see the different structure of a flower, different parts of a flower, then there is a flower has a stalk. You can see this is the stalk. So, this stalk will help the flower to get attached to the stem. Okay? And the tip of the stalk is quietly, swollen, and that part from which the flower will arises. So that tip of the stalk, which is quietly swollen part, that part is called thalamus. Okay, so now some plants like tulip or the plants like lily, they have got only one stalk, which means only one flower will grow or bloom from one stalk. Okay, but some of the flowers, they have got more than one stalk. And in some cases, some of the flowers, they do not have a stalk. They will go directly from the branches, from the stem. So that type of flower where the stalk is absent, that type of flower is called sessile flowers. Now let's discuss the parts of a flower. So if you see the parts of a flower, then a flower has 4 main parts. And they are calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. These are the 4 main parts of a flower, which means a single flower contains all these 4 parts. And they are calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. Now, what is the calyx? Now, calyx, actually it is the outermost whole of a flower is called calyx. So this one, you can see it out here. This is the outermost whole, or these are called calyx. Okay, and they consist of sepals, and these sepals, they are green in color. So what is the function of sepals? The function of the sepal is they will protect the flower in the bud stage. So when the flower is in the bud stage, they are protected by sepals. And since these sepals are green in color, means they will also perform the function of photosynthesis. They will also prepare the food for the plant. Then comes the second whole of a flower, which is called corolla. Okay, so corolla means they consist of petals. So these are corolla, the brightly colored petals, which we can say which is the second whole of a flower. These are called corolla and they consist of petals. So if you see these petals of a flower, they are brightly colored, they are large also. So the function of these petals are to attract the insects for pollination. So they will attract the insects because of the bright color for the process of pollination. And the flowers petals, they have got also a pleasant smell, because of which the insects can easily get attracted towards them. And that is the main function of petals, because they will attract the insects for the process of pollination. Okay, then the third whole of a flower is androecium. Androecium, actually androecium, it is the male part of a flower. So androecium, this one which you can see it out here, these are androecium. These are androecium, which is the male part. And these androecium, they consist of a unit called male reproductive unit called stamen. Okay, then stamen has two parts. One is called filament and the other one is called anther. All right, now filament, what is filament? It is a short narrow stalk. This narrow stalk is called, or tube-like structure is called filament, and anther, it's a bilobed or which looks like a cap. It is called anther. And the function of the filament is it will give support to the anther, and these anther, they contain a small grain-like structures. Okay, and those small grain-like structures are called pollen grains. And these pollen grains contain the male gamete or the male egg, because anther it is, or stamen, it is the male reproductive part of a flower. Then the fourth whole of a flower, the innermost part of a flower is the gynoecium. And gynoecium, it is the female part of a flower, which you can see it out here. So this gynoecium, it contains the female reproductive part, which is called pistil, or it is also called carpel also. And this pistil consists of three parts, and they are stigma, style and ovary. Okay, so stigma, style and ovary are the female reproductive part. So what is stigma? The topmost part is called the stigma, and this stigma, it is sticky in nature. And the function of the stigma is actually it will receive the pollen grains from the anther. So they are sticky in nature, so the pollen grains can easily stuck in the stigma. Then the next one is style, a long tube-like structure. So this style will connect stigma with ovary. So stigma and ovary are connected by a tube-like structure called style. Then ovary, it is the solen base. Okay, so this solen base is called the ovary, and this ovary contains the eggs inside them, and those eggs are called ovules. And these ovules, they contain the female egg or female gametes. So these are the different parts of a flower: calyx, corolla, androecium and gynoecium. And if you see the function of the ovules, then the ovules in the ovary contain the female eggs, female gametes. So children, these are the different parts of a flower, which is the reproductive part of a flower which plays an important role in the process of reproduction. So, thank you children.